Holy Week blessings. Today is Holy Saturday. Holy Saturday is the day that is between Good Friday and Easter. It's a day of being in between. We're in between the horrors of Good Friday and the hope of Easter. In this in between time, we can take a moment to contemplate what it is to take a Sabbath. In the early church, this day of Holy Saturday used to be called the Great and Holy Sabbath. The Sabbath day is that day between Friday and Sunday, that day of rest where we remember that at the end of a certain period of creation and creativity, God sat down and sanctified the seventh day as being a day of rest. The day is actually a day that God didn't work on creating anything, but it's a day that creates us in a way. Today, as we continue looking at the relationships in Jesus and the idea of relationship through Jesus' eyes, let's focus for a moment on Jesus' relationship with himself. A relationship with oneself is critical. It's important for us to realize that in order for us to be able to love God and love our neighbors, we need to first love ourselves, and we need to be able to take care of ourselves. As Jesus said somewhere in the Gospels, it's interesting to note that the Sabbath was created for humanity and not humanity for the Sabbath. Sabbath is a day for us to be able to take care of ourselves. Some of the ways that Jesus took care of himself is that he asserted boundaries of appropriateness and not appropriateness when he was interacting with various people that confronted him about various things. Jesus also separated himself from the crowds and from his disciples from time to time so he could go off to pray or so that he could meditate. And there's places in the Gospels where it talks about Jesus sleeping. It's an important thing we all need to do. Jesus takes meals and drinks and has refreshments and goes to weddings and goes to dinner parties and spends time socializing and meeting new people. Jesus had a keen sense of awareness about who he was and what he needed to do in order for him to have the effective kind of ministry that he had. In order for him to be a good teacher and leader, he needed to take care of himself. He was able to do that up to his final dying breath. In fact, in the Gospels, it says that Jesus, when he breathed his last, he said, "I commend myself into your hands. I commend my spirit." Jesus was giving of himself. He was aware of himself. He had a relationship with himself, and he took good care of himself. He stayed true to himself. How can we, as his disciples of this day, continue to keep that momentum going? How can we take care of ourselves? How can we follow his example? Well, we can do like he did by taking time apart for prayer and for meditation. We can make sure that we get sleep. We can make sure that we have good meals. We can make sure that we're engaging socially. And we can make sure that we're having fun. These are all things that we need to do as human beings in order to have good care of ourselves. And only if we take good care of ourselves do we have the ability to be good to others. We can't love others if we don't love ourselves. One of the things that says in the final verse of today's reading is that the disciples who were there witnessing the burial of Jesus went away from the burial place and they observed the Sabbath. They separated themselves from the world. They separated themselves from labor. They didn't do any work. Instead, they allowed themselves to recover, to have this day of breathing and allowing themselves to simply be in God's presence and to become renewed and rejuvenated by the Sabbath. Sabbath isn't so much about a specific day of the week as it is about how we care for ourselves in our relationship with God. We're aware of that we are not only the image of God, but that we are God's children. God has given us ourselves to take care of, and so we need to do our best that we can to see to it that we maintain healthy lives and that we are giving boundaries to other people about what is and isn't appropriate behavior for us. And we also can take good care of ourselves by making sure that we have good social connections as well as good meals and good rest. We also can have plenty of fun as another way of making sure that we have good self-care. All these things that we do will empower us to be able to love God and love our neighbors. It all comes from the way that we treat ourselves. If we treat ourselves with respect, with dignity, with love, and with kindness, then that's the way we're going to treat other people. So to that end, let us mark this day as being a day that is the great and holy Sabbath, a day for us to beware of our relationships with ourselves. And as Jesus' body rested in the tomb, let us be mindful of the fact that on a daily basis we need to have time for us to be able to rest as well, so that when we find ourselves between horror and hope, that we'll be able to rise in the morning and greet whatever the possibilities of that day may hold for us. Amen.